Just should I start at any time? My name is Q Hanley, and I'll be reciting The Conqueror Worm by Edgar Allan Poe. Lo, 'tis a gala night within the lonesome latter years, an angel throng, bewinged, bedight, in veils and drowned in tears, sit in a theater to see a play of hopes and fears, while the orchestra breathes fitfully the music of the spheres. Mimes in the form of God on high mutter and mumble low, and hither and thither fly. Mere puppets they, who come and go at bidding of vast formless things that shift the scenery to and fro. Flapping from out their condor wings, invisible woe. That motley drama, oh, be sure it shall not be forgot, with its phantom chased forevermore by a crowd that sees it not, through a circle that ever returneth into the self-same spot, and much of madness and more of sin and horror the soul of the plot. But see amid the mimic rout a crawling shape intrude, a blood-red thing that writhes from out the scenic solitude. It writhes with mortal pangs. The mimes become its food, and seraphs sob at vermin fangs in human gore imbued. Out are the lights, out all, and over each quivering form the curtain, a funeral pall, comes down with the rush of a storm, while the angels, all pallid and wan, uprising, unveiling, affirm that the play is the tragedy Man, and its hero, the conqueror worm. I'm Q Hanley, and I'll be reciting The Mortician in San Francisco by Randall Mann. This may sound queer, but in 1985, I held the delicate hands of Dan White. I prepared him for burial. By then, Harvey Milk was made monument, no, myth, by the year since he was shot. I remember when Harvey was shot. 20, and I knew I was queer. Those were the years. Levi's and leather jackets, holding hands on Castro Street, cheering for Harvey Milk. Elected on the same day as Dan White. I often wonder about Supervisor White, who fatally shot Mayor Moscone and Supervisor Milk, who was one of us, a Castro queer. May 21st, 1979, a jury hands down the sentence. 7 years, in truth, 5 years, for ex-cop, ex-fireman Dan White, for the blood on his hands. When he confessed to shooting the mayor and the queer, a few men in blue cheered. And Harvey Milk? Why cry over spilled milk? Some thought, semi-privately. For years, it meant one less queer. The jurors turned to White. If just the mayor had been shot, Dan might have had trouble on his hands. But the 12 that held his life in their hands maybe didn't mind the death of Harvey Milk. Maybe the second murder offered him a shot at serving just a few years. In the end, he committed suicide, this Dan White, and he was made presentable by a queer.
Kaitlyn Do, The Listeners by Walter de la Mare. Is there anybody there? Said the traveler, knocking on the moonlit door, and his horse in the silence champed the grasses of the farce ferny floor. And a bird flew up out of the turret above the traveler's head, and he smote on the door again, a second time. "Is there anybody there?" he said. But no one descended to the traveler. No head from the leaf-fringed sill leaned over and looked into his gray eyes where he stood perplexed and still. But only a host of phantom listeners that dwelt in the lone house then stood listening in the quiet of the moonlight to that voice from the world of men, stood thronging the faint moonbeams on the dark stair that go down to the empty hall, hearkening in an air stirred and shaken by the lonely traveler's call. And he felt in his heart their stillness, their strangeness, their stillness answering his cry, while his horse moved cropping the dark turf neath the starred and leafy sky. For he suddenly smote on the door even louder and lifted his head. "Tell them I came and no one answered. That I kept my word," he said. Never the least stir made the listeners, though every word he spake fell echoing through the shadowiness of the still house, from the one man left awake. Aye, they heard his foot upon the stirrup, and the sound of iron on stone, and how the silence surged softly backward when the plunging hoofs were gone. Kaitlyn Do, Banneker by Rita Dove. What did he do except lie under a pear tree, wrapped in a great cloak, and meditate on the heavenly bodies? Venerable, the good people of Baltimore whispered, shocked and more than a little afraid. After all it was said, he took to strong drink. Why else would he stay out under the stars all night? And why hadn't he married? But who would want him? Neither Ethiopian nor English, neither lucky nor crazy, a capacious bird humming as he penned in his mind another inflamed letter to President Jefferson. He imagined the reply, polite and rhetorical. Those who had been to Philadelphia reported the statue of Benjamin Franklin before the library, his very size and likeness. A wife? No, thank you. At dawn he milked the cows, then went inside and put on a pot to stew while he slept. The clock he whittled as a boy still ran. Neighbors woke him up with warm bread and quilts. At nightfall, he took out his rifle, a white-maned figure stalking the darkened breast of the Union, and shot at the stars, and by chance one went out. Had he killed? I assure thee, my dear sir. Lowering his eyes to fields sweet with the rot of spring, he could see a government's domed city rising from the morass and spreading in a spiral of lights.
I am Zac Brutko, and this is They Buried Their Son Last Winter by Suri Jadon, translated by John Hennessy. They buried their son last winter. Strange weather for winter. Rain, thunder. They buried him quietly. Everybody's busy. Who did he fight for, I asked. We don't know, they say. He fought for someone, they say, but who? Who knows? Will it change anything, they say? What's the point now? I would have asked him myself, but now there's no need. And he wouldn't reply. He was buried without his head. It's the third year of war. They're repairing the bridges. I know so many things about you, but who'd listen? I know, for example, the song you used to sing. I know your sister. I always had a thing for her. I know what you were afraid of, and why even. Who you met that winter. What you told them. The sky gleams full of ashes every night now. You always played for a neighboring school, but who did you fight for? To come here every year, to weed dry grass, to dig the earth every year, heavy, lifeless. To see the calm after tragedy every year, to insist you didn't shoot at us, at your people. The birds disappear behind waves of rain to ask forgiveness for your sins. But what do I know about your sins? To beg the rain to finally stop. It's easier for birds who know nothing of salvation, the soul. I am Zac Brutko, and this is a poem in which I try to express my glee at the music my friend has given me, by Ross Gay, for Patrick Rosal. Because I must not get up to throw down in a cafe in the Midwest. I hold something like a clown-faced herd of bareback and winged elephants stomping in my chest. I hold 1,000 balloons in a field, loosed from their tethers at once. I feel my skeleton losing track somewhat of the science I made of Tamp. Feel it rising up, shriek and groove, rising up a river, guzzling a monsoon. Not to mention the butterflies of the loins, the hummingbirds of the loins, the 1,000 dromedaries of the loins. Oh, body of sunburst, body of larkspur and honeysucker bloom, body of treetop holler. Oh, lightspeed body of gasp and systole, the mandibles ramble, the clavicle swoon, the spine's trillion teeth. Oh, drift of hip, oh, trill of ribs. Oh, synaptic clamor and juggernaut swell. Oh, gut racket blasts off and sugar tongue syntax, and throb and pulse and rivulet swing and glottal thing and kickstart heart and heel toe heart. Ooh, ooh, ooh. A bullfight where the bull might take flight and win.
Annie Forry. My poem is Beautiful Wreckage by W.D. Earhart. What if I didn't shoot the old lady running away from our patrol, or the old man in the back of the head, or the boy in the marketplace? Or what if the boy, but he didn't have a grenade, and the woman in hue didn't lie in the rain in a mortar pit with 7 Marines just for food? Gaffney didn't get hit in the knee. Ames didn't die in the river. Ski didn't die in a medevac chopper between Con Tien and Da Nang. In Vietnamese, Con Tien means place of angels. What if it really was? Instead of the place of rotting sandbags, incoming heavy artillery, rats and mud. What if the angels were Ames and Ski? Or the lady, the man, and the boy, and they lifted Gaffney out of the mud and healed his shattered knee? What if none of it happened the way I said? Would it all be a lie? Would the wreckage be suddenly beautiful? Would the dead rise up and walk? My name is Annie Forry, and I'm reciting Snake Oil, Snake Bite by Dilruba Ahmed. They staunched the wound with a stone. They drew blue venom from his blood until there was none. When his veins ran true, his face remained lifeless. And all the mothers of the village wept and pounded their chests until the sky had little choice but to grant their supplications. God made the boy breathe again. God breathes life into us, it is said, only once. But this case was an exception. God drew back in a giant gust and blew life into the boy, and like a stranded fish, he shuddered, oceanless. It was true. The boy lived. He lived for a very long time. The toxins were an oil slick, contaminated, cleaned. But just as soon as the women kissed redness back into his cheeks, the boy began to die again. He continued to die for the rest of his life. The dying took place slowly, sweetly. The dying took a very long time.
The Siren Song by Margaret Atwood. This is the one song everyone would like to learn. The song that is irresistible. The song that forces men to leap overboard in squadrons even though they see the beach skulls. The song nobody knows because anyone who has heard it is dead and the others can't remember. Shall I tell you the secret? And if I do, will you get me out of this bird suit? I don't enjoy it here, squatting on this island looking picturesque and mythical. With these 2 feathery maniacs, I don't enjoy singing. This trio, fatal and valuable. I will tell the secret to you, only to you. Come closer. This song is a cry for help. Help me, only you can. You are unique. At last. Alas, it is a boring psalm, but it works every time. Sadie Kosoff, A Poison Tree by William Blake. I was angry with my friend. I told my wrath did end. I was angry with my foe. I told it not, my wrath did grow. And I watered it in fears, night and morning in my tears. And I sunned it with smiles and with soft, deceitful wiles. And it grew both day and night, till it bore an apple bright. And my foe beheld it shine, and he knew that it was mine. And into the garden stole, when the night had veiled the pole. In the morning glad I see my foe outstretched beneath the tree.
My therapist wants to know about my relationship to work, by Tiana Clark. I hustle upstream, I grasp, I grind, I control and panic. Poke balloons in my chest, always popping there, always my thoughts thump, thump. I snooze, wake, and go boom. All day like this, I short my breath. I scroll and scroll. I see what you wrote. I like, I heart. My thumb, so tired. My head bent down, but not in prayer. Heavy from the looking. I see your face, your phone-lit faces. I retweet. I tap your food for more hearts. I retweet. I email yes, and yes, and yes. Then I cry and need to say no, no, no. Why does it take so long to reply? I FOMO and shout. I read. I never enough. New book, new post, new ping, a new tab, then another. Papers on the floor, scattered and stacked. So many journals and broken white spines. Waiting. Did you hear that new? I start to text back. Ellipsis. Then I forget. I balk. I lazy the bed. I wallow when I write. I truth when I lie. I throw a book when a poem undoes me. I underline Clifton. Today we are possible. I start from image. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley. I begin with Phyllis Wheatley reaching for coal. I start with a napkin, receipt, or my hand. I muscle memory. I stutter the page. I fail. Hit delete. Scratch out one more line. I sonnet, then break form. I make tea. Use 2 bags. Rooibos again. I bathe now. Epsom salt. No phones or books, just water and the sound of water filling. Glory be my buoyant body, bowl of me. Yes, lavender. More bubbles and bath bomb. Of course, some candles too. All alone with Coltrane, my favorite Nema, for his wife, now for me, inside my own womb. Again I child back. I float, I sing, I simple and humble. Eyes close. I low my voice. Was it a psalm? Don't know, but I stopped. Before the Birth of One of Her Children, by Anne Bradstreet. All things within this fading world hath end. Adversity doth still our joys attend. No ties so strong, no friends so dear and sweet, but with death's parting blow is sure to meet. The sentence passed is most irrevocable, a common thing, yet oh inevitable. How soon, my dear, death may my steps attend, how soon't may be thy lot to lose thy friend. We are both ignorant, yet love bids me these farewell lines to recommend to thee, that when that knot's untied that made us one, I may seem thine who in effect am none. And if I see not half my days that's due, what nature would, God grant to yours and you. The many faults that, well, you know I have, let be interred in my oblivious grave. If any worth or virtue were in me, let that live freshly in thy memory. And when thou feel'st no grief, as I no harms, yet love thy dead who long lay in thine arms. And when thy loss shall be repaid with gains, look to my little babes, my dear remains. And if thou love thyself, or lovedst me, these O protect from step-dame's injury. And if chance to thine eyes shall bring this verse, with some sad sighs honor my absent hearse, and kiss this paper for thy love's dear sake, who with salt tears this last farewell did take.
Adelyn Ruth. Emily Dickinson at the Poetry Slam by Dan Vera. I will tell you why she rarely ventured from her house. It happened like this. One day, she took the train to Boston, made her way to the darkened room, put her name down in cursive script, and waited her turn. When they read her name aloud, she made her way to the stage, straightened the papers in her hands, pages and envelopes, the backs of grocery bills. She closed her eyes for a minute, took a breath, and began. From her mouth, perfect words exploded, intact formulas of light and darkness. She dared to rhyme with words like cochineal and describe the skies like diadem. Obscurely worded incantations filled the room with an alchemy that made the very molecules quake. The solitary words she handled in her upstairs room with keen precision came rumbling out to make the electric lights flicker. 40 members of the audience were treated for hypertension. 20-year-old dark-haired beauties found their heads had turned a Moses white. Her second poem erased the memory of every cell phone in the nightclub, and by the fourth line of the sixth verse, the grandmother in the upstairs apartment had been cured of her rheumatism. The papers reported the power outages. The area hospitals taxed their emergency generators, and sirens were heard to wail through the night. Quietly, she made her way to the exit, walked to the terminal, and rode back to Amherst. She never left her room again, and never read such syllables aloud. Adelyn Ruth. Adam's Curse by William Butler Yeats. We sat together at one summer's end, that beautiful, mild woman, your close friend, and you and I, and talked of poetry. I said, a line will take us hours maybe, yet if it does not seem a moment's thought, our stitching and unstitching has been naught. Better go down upon your marrow bones and scrub a kitchen pavement, or break stones, like an old pauper, in all kinds of weather. For to articulate sweet sounds together is to work harder than all these, and yet we thought an idler by the noisy set of bankers, schoolmasters, and clergymen the martyrs call the world. And thereupon that beautiful, mild woman, for whose sake there's many a one shall find out all heartache, on finding that her voice is sweet and low, replied, to be born woman is to know, although they do not talk of it at school, that we must labor to be beautiful. I said, it's certain there is no fine thing since Adam's fall, but needs much laboring. There have been lovers who thought love should be so much compounded of high courtesy that they would sigh and quote with learned looks precedents out of beautiful old books, yet now it seems an idle trade enough. We sat grown quiet at the name of love. We saw the last embers of daylight die, and in the trembling blue-green of the sky, a moon, worn as if it had been a shell, washed by time's waters as they rose and fell about the stars and broke in days and years. I had a thought for no one's but your ears, that you were beautiful, and that I strove to love you in the old high way of love, that it had all seemed happy, and yet we'd grown as weary-hearted as that hollow moon.
My name's Elijah Walters, and this is Numbers by Mary Cornish. I like the generosity of numbers. The way, for example, they're willing to count anything or anyone. 2 pickles, 1 door to the room, 8 dancers dressed as swans. I like the domesticity of addition. Add 2 cups of milk and stir. The sense of plenty. 6 plums on the ground, 3 more falling from the tree. And multiplication school of fish times fish whose silver bodies breed beneath the shadow of a boat. Even subtraction is never lost, just addition somewhere else. 5 sparrows take away 2, the 2 in someone else's garden now. There's an amplitude to long division, as it opens Chinese take-up box by paper box. Inside every folded cookie, a new fortune. And I never fail to be surprised by the gift of an odd remainder.
footloose at the end. 47 divided by 11 equals 4, with 3 remaining. 3 boys beyond their mother's call. 2 Italians off to the sea. 1 sock that isn't anywhere you look. I'm Elijah Walters, and this is Miniver Cheevy by Edwin Arlington Robinson. Miniver Cheevy, child of scorn, grew lean while he assailed the seasons. He wept that he was ever born, and he had reasons. Miniver loved the days of old when swords were bright and steeds were prancing. The vision of a warrior bold would set him dancing. Miniver sighed for what was not. He dreamed and rested from his labors. He dreamed of Thebes and Camelot and Priam's neighbors. Miniver mourned the ripe renown that made so many a name so fragrant. He mourned romance now in the town, and art, a vagrant. Miniver loved the Medici, albeit he had never seen one. He would have sinned incessantly, could he have been one. Miniver cursed the commonplace and eyed a khaki suit with loathing. He missed the medieval grace of iron clothing. Miniver scorned the gold he sought, but sore annoyed was he without it. Miniver thought and thought and thought and thought about it. Miniver Cheever, born too late, scratched his head and kept on thinking. Miniver coughed and called it fate and kept on drinking.
My name is Skylar Peiffer, and I will be reciting Cartoon Physics, Part 1 by Nick Flynn. Children under, say, 10 shouldn't know that the universe is ever expanding, inexorably pushing into the vacuum, galaxies swallowed by galaxies, whole solar systems collapsing. All of it acted out in silence. At 10, we are still learning the rules of cartoon animation, that if a man draws a door on a rock, only he can pass through it. Anyone else who tries will crash into the rock. 10-year-olds should stick with burning houses, car wrecks, ships going down, earthbound, tangible disasters. Arenas where they can be the heroes. You can run back into a burning house. Sinking ships have lifeboats. The trucks will come with their ladders. If you jump, you will be saved. A child places her hand on the roof of a school bus and drives through a city of sand. She knows the exact spot it will skid, at which point the bridge will give, who will swim to safety, and who will be pulled under by sharks. She will learn that if a man runs off the edge of a cliff, he will not fall until he notices his mistake. My name is Skylar Peiffer, and I will be reciting The Farmer by E.W. Earhart. Each day I go into the fields to see what is growing and what remains to be done. It is always the same thing. Nothing is growing. Everything needs to be done. Plow, harrow, disc, water, pray till my bones ache and hands rub blood raw with honest labor. All that grows is the slow, intransigent intensity of need. I have sown my seed on soil guaranteed by poverty to fail. But I don't complain, except when passersby ask me why I work such barren earth. They would not understand me when I scoop and lift up a rock and hold it like a child, or laugh, or tell them that it's their poverty I labor for. For them, I complain. A farmer of dreams knows how to pretend. A farmer of dreams knows what it means to be patient. Each day I go into the fields. swear I get 10 times and the time I have to make it right. Oh.